today we are going to work on some activities. Yes, we are going to work. Well, I'm not going to work, you are going to work. In fact. So, first of all, some facts. Well, learning a language implies learning a different culture, right? Okay. Talking about English language, that is the one that you are teaching. What is the culture that we are learning?
English, American.
British American.
Irish, Scottish.
Okay. Pick out. Canadian.
Irish,
Australian.
Irish.
Exactly.
Scottish.
Scottish. What about Singaporean?
It's not common.
They have a white English culture in Singapore because it was a colony of the Great Britain. So it's part of it. Also, we have in America another, different countries with this culture, the English language culture. Can you remember some of them?
Jamaica.
Jamaica, yeah. This is more like French heritage.
Puerto Rico.
Oh yes, in Puerto Rico there's a lot of influence. Another one, very near to Mexico. In fact, we have a frontier. Okay, no, the one no further. Belize. Yes. Also the Bahamas. They speak English. And small countries in the Caribbean. Like Santa Lucia. Have you heard about that? Oh yes, I've been there last week. So like, this is part of the culture of Englishes. Have you heard about that? No. That there is no one English, but different Englishes. Like with Spanish. Do we have one Spanish? No. We have as many as different countries and regions. Okay? So, and a new language has different structures, vocabulary, ways of seeing the life. For example, something very easy but is very difficult for our students when they are very young. If we talk about different ways of organizing the discourse, have you ever, okay kids, you have been in practices, right? Yes. Okay, that part about adjectives and nouns for our students, red ball, no? The ball rail, oh yes, they have like that, like, yes. Because it's a different way of organizing the discourse. Imagine having all your life one way of speaking and suddenly change it. And also the cosmovision. It's a different cosmovision. And imagine, we are doing that in our classrooms. It is not only pollito chicken, no. We have all that in the same classroom. And also our personal culture. It implies the way in which we interact with others. For example, if we think that the Mexican culture is the only valuable culture in the world, yes, we are having certain, let's say, challenges in teaching another culture, in showing another culture. And that happens with our own identity, our own culture. This is giving us a frame, and that frame is impacting the way in which we teach. Okay? For example, have you ever heard about the inclusion culture that we have to, in Mexico, we have to create inclusive classrooms? Yes. And what happens if we think that that is wrong? That special people need special classrooms. Yes, I know your faces are like, oh my God, no, never, I will never do that. Okay.
In theory.
I want you to think about deaf students. This is a reality. And how can you integrate them into the classroom? Because they have a different culture. The deaf culture in Mexico is very strong and with strong characteristics. So how can you integrate them into the classroom? Just think about that, because we're talking about different cultures. And what about a Zapotec student with a different cosmovision? And Zapotec female student. They don't have the right to speak in public. How can you integrate that culture into your classroom? Just think about that. Being a teacher is not only being in front and talk, and saying, okay, I'm right, you're wrong. It is also about our assumptions. It is also about our own culture and having that idea of, well, being open-minded. It's not my culture is right and your culture is wrong. My culture is different to yours, but it is not right or wrong. It's only different. Well, some ideas I found. Let's share those ideas and you tell me what you thought about them. Okay, English is a global language. What do you think?
It is.
Why? Because a teacher told you. Because they're here.
Pretty much.
Okay, one idea.
Because if you are in another country, you can communicate with others in English, not necessarily in the mother tongue.
Okay, yes, in some countries you can use English as a lingua franca. Good. Any other idea?
In manuals, for example, you can find English, so it could be in Spanish, but English is compulsory, it should be there.
Yes, exactly. It is a global language because of that. And there is one global thing that everybody is using right now. And if you say, I know I've never been there, it's because you're lying. In
The internet.
Internet! Okay. What is the name of the most popular searcher?
Google.
Ah, that's Spanish, right?
No.
In fact, there's a verb to Google something. Okay, and what's the most popular social network?
Facebook,
Facebook, Instagram,
Twitter.
Twitter. And the language that we use there, well, the most used language there is
English.
English. So, if we want to live there, well, this is a global language. Also, an academic too. I know that you love writing your papers with your summary or your abstract in English, even if they are in Spanish. Yes, your faces said everything. You love that. And your research, of course, if you want to have the most, state-of-the-art research, you check papers in
English.
because you're, English teachers. Yes. So for you, this is a must. And your classes, right? Yes, you're very convinced. Well, an academic too. Okay, if you want to have or to be part of an exchange program, okay, you need English, right?
Yes.
Minimum.
Okay, yes, you're very convinced. And you need English because you want to be English teachers. So, is it an academic too?
Yes.
Okay, definitely. A door to the world. Ah, I love that. That's so romantic. What do you think about that? Have you seen those ads? I love them. About Open English?
Yes.
They have this idea, right? Okay. Those are some ideas. So let's have some feedback on them. Your parents, they say, you have to learn English because
It's a door to the world.
to the world. Better jobs, yes.
Higher salaries.
Better salaries, good. And also, woohoo.
Travel around.
Yes, if you want to travel, take English. It's so cool. Yes. And also, an element about best status. Oh, you speak English. Oh my God, you're so cool. You're with your friends. Oh yes, I speak English. I can talk to the foreign student without any problem. Or if you are in Tasco with your friends. Okay, go, because you speak English. Go to the queen, go and go.
You're the king now.
No. Well, a modernity developer. Why? Okay, think about research, science.
Artificial intelligence.
Artificial intelligence, okay, in fact. That term, artificial intelligence. Another?
Programming.
Programming, yeah. Yes, of course, engineers need English.
Doctors.
Research, good. Someone said computers or something like that, no? Systems, etc.
Medicine.
Medicine. And of course,
Most of the apps are in English.
apps, yes. And also something very important. Academic work in general, they want the papers in English or with an abstract in English. And I'm not talking just about ELT. I'm talking about medicine, about engineering, about
Technology, science.
even arts. Now, if you write, if you are a poet or a writer, be prepared to have the translation of your work in English. So, we have discussed that. What are your positions? Of course, if we are English teachers, we know that. Well, we are going to be English teachers. Our coordinators. Some comments I've heard. Well, we have those ideas about English. Oh, so cool. English is so cool in our lives. But we have this kind of ideas.
No.
What do you think about this? No, of course not. Why not?
Being a native speaker doesn't mean
It's
you
the
speak
same the
well.
other way around. Because, for example, we speak Spanish, but we are not good Spanish teachers. So we take for granted our language and we don't know the rules. So I think not all native speakers can be good language teachers.
Exactly, because if we speak a language, we speak it, let's say, naturally. We're not thinking about the rules. In Spanish, we don't say, oh yes, this is an implicit subject. And that is a transitive verb. So I don't need an object or whatsoever. No, we all speak. And of course, some native speakers could be excellent teachers. But being a native speaker, English, Spanish, Italian, whatsoever, doesn't mean that you are a good teacher. In fact, being a graduated of any English program doesn't mean that you are a good teacher. That's why you have your practice sessions. Another one, I love this one. British English is more elegant than American English. What do you think?
Which variant?
It's true.
Well, okay, something that Ms. Berta has said. We have different dialects. And we cannot say that we don't have the queen, but the king's English is the best English. For him, maybe. But sometimes speaking like this is not very comfortable. Something like that. It's not very, well, maybe it could be elegant, but not very good in terms of communication. Imagine being there. And not all British accents are elegant, right?
The Cockney.
The Cockney or the
British?
the northern accent from Newcastle, for example. Tua.
That's not even in English.
Tua. And American English.
Yeah.
We cannot say that all American English is very difficult or very, it's not posh. Well, for me, remember former President Obama?
Yeah.
He had a very good English, for me. And he was very elegant. But his wife, wow. Michelle, she was like, okay, an example of English. And she was American, and a black woman. You know that some people say, no, black people, no, they cannot speak English properly. Michelle Obama, she's a very good example of elegant English, but an English that is very useful in communicative exchanges. It's not like, well, the Queen's, just because the Queen was very cool, the Queen's English. Okay, this one. I love that. Latin American accent is horrible.
Thank you very much.
I appreciate it.
Chinese accent.
Have you heard that?
Why are you telling something?
Yes?
Why aren't we allowed to speak like Sofia Vergara?
But even for some people, Sofia Vergara's accent is very sexy.
Yes.
And they consider that like the sexiest accent.
Not yet.
No, in fact, yes.
Even without accent.
Well, some people think that Sofia Vergara's accent is the one that she has in her role in Modern Family. That was part of her role. But for some people, that is the sexiest accent. Yes. Well, we can think of different accents. For example, have you heard Guillermo del Toro in his Oscar's acceptance?
Yes.
Yeah.
Was his accent horrible?
No.
Very clear, in fact, no? Well, and everybody loves Guillermo del Toro. Yes. Yeah, he speaks English. It's like, oh yes, we love him. So, Latin American accent. Not horrible. This one. Kids from bilingual schools are the ones who can speak English properly.
No.
Well, I have seen, and this is from my experience, one little girl, she's 5 years old, and she's in a bilingual school, kindergarten, and she speaks only washa washa. Very nice accent, but only washa washa. And she's having fun. Why? Because, well, according to some research, it is the best age to learn a language is not under 7. But when kids are 7 and up. Because their mother tongue is fixed and they are learning new languages and they have their muscles with the opportunity to be changed and develop new sounds. And this is not my idea, this is from Norway. And Finland too. They have had the same results. That's why in Finland they have English when kids are 7 as a compulsory subject at school. And here we have bilingual nurseries, in fact.
Yeah.
If the baby cannot speak Spanish because she is a baby, can they speak English? No. But, well, It's cool to say that, okay, and our nursery is bilingual
Or trilingual.
or trilingual. But well, we have some historical events in Mexico that have defined our relationship with English. The relationship Mexico-USA. Yeah. Sometimes being neighbors is not the best way of being friends. So we have this relationship. It's a love-hate relationship.
Yeah.
And it depends on the presidents. We don't know. And the pluralist ideas. Oh, my students love that, the pluralist ideas. They want to learn Nahuatl because English is part of the imperialism. Why? Because they want to learn Nahuatl. But when they have the opportunity to learn Nahuatl, they say that, well, Nahuatl is not very useful in the world, so why to learn an original language? Mental representations. For some people, learning English is like, oh no, this is only for fifi, for very posh people. I'm not saying the name of the person who said that, but everybody knows his name. So, and what happens? What is the result of that?
Prejudice.
Inability to interact with the other. If we think that Spanish is the top of the top and learning English is, well, a waste of time, guess what? We're not going to learn English. If our students think that learning English is a waste of time because, well, they are in secondary school and they don't want to learn, well, no English, nor Spanish, nor mathematics, guess what? Well, this is going to be a waste of time. And when they have this wonderful question, okay, why do I need English in my life? The first thing, to get your certificate. This is the first thing you need English for. If you want to graduate from secondary school, you need English. Okay, do we need English?
Yes.
In Mexican education system, yes, we need English. To graduate from secondary school, from high school, preparatoria, bachillerato, whatsoever. And now, university. So, why do we need English? Oh, you want to graduate? You have to speak English. Okay, another result. If we think that English is an evil language because it's the language of the evil people, the northern people, I'm not talking about Game of Thrones. So what happens with the affective filter? Increases. And what happens when we have our affective filter blocking us?
We not get to increase our level of English.
Exactly, we're not learning. What happens if we don't feel comfortable in a classroom?
We don't feel confident in speaking with others.
We don't feel confident to speak. Right now, what happens if you feel that you have to be here? You are like, rah, 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 rah. And I can be talking about the best ideas, and what happens? Rah, 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 rah.
You're less attentive.
You are not attentive? Yes. Sorry. And something very important. Do you remember Charlie Brown's teacher?
Yeah.
Or you are too young?
Yeah.
Okay, remember her voice?
Yeah.
Rah, 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 rah. Imagine all your students with listening to you and only getting like rah, 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 rah. Okay, some teachers, yes, right now, yes, here, maybe, speak like that, rah, 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 rah. But what happens with the learning?
Yeah, they are like hearing but not listening.
Exactly. We can hear, but are we listening? No. And this is an important part of intercultural communication. We are going to check in a second, but attentive listening is an important part of intercultural communication. And listening is two ways.
Yeah.
You can say, okay, we are passive here listening to Gabriela.
No.
I can see your reactions. I can see if you are texting, hello, the ones that are texting, or if you are about to fall asleep, hello, the ones that are about to fall asleep, or if you are paying attention. Yes, I know that. And I know that you will discover in your practices that it is very obvious when we are the teachers or when we are the facilitators, as my case today, to notice your reactions. Something typical.
Like melting in the sea.
Exactly, like melting. One of my teachers said, sentado de rabadilla. Yes, because you know the chickens, right?
Gaucho pouch.
And the rabadilla. Yes. Yes, I can see some of you that are like, yes. Well, that is part of affective filter increase, or that idea, secondary school kids, whatever. Well, you have to study, whatever. But it is very important for your life, whatever. It means I don't care. Why? Because the affective filter is here and says, I'm not learning. What for? Learning is not effective, and there is not a real intercultural communication. If I can see that you are nodding, there's communication. If I see that you are commenting to the person next to you, there's real communication. If you are snoring, well, no, that's not real
Well,
communication.
yeah, it's communicating something.
Yes, that they are not there.
Exactly.
That is not real communication, because communication is
Yeah, both ways.
exactly. So, in our classroom, we need to integrate everything that we have been talking about. The cognitive part, this is very important. The personal, the affective, that is the personal part. And also, this is very important, social competencies. Now we are dealing with very different people. The post-pandemic world is giving us different students. According to some research made last year in Mexico, students have a delay of 2 years in their development. Cognitive, personal, social, and even physical. Why? Because of the pandemic world that we were at home and we were in a very closed space. So, imagine, we are dealing with that. We are dealing with students that have, when we are working with teenagers, you know that those years are vital for their development. Teenagers that do not have the social skills to interact, that are afraid of being in rooms like this. Why? Because they reflected the parents' ideas. Don't go, don't touch, keep safe. And because they have levels of stress, very high levels of stress, and they didn't have the tools to cope with that. Do you know the name of that?
Resilience.
Resilience. They didn't have the opportunity to develop the tools to be resilient people. Talking about teenagers. Talking about adults, it is more common that we have those tools because of the maturity. And maybe you are thinking like, no, I don't have those tools, I'm stressed. And it is valid.
We're human.
Yeah, we're human. And the point is that we are erasing those years because they were not the best in our lives. So we came back to normal life and we're erasing those 2 years. If not, analyze. This is for you to analyze, okay? That's why the socio-emotional part of the classroom is very important. Also, well, we have to develop communicative competence. competences. Okay, not only cognitive. Imagine in secondary school, cognitive, oh my god. Not only personal and affective, also communicative competences. Yes, in one class. And also appreciation of cultural differences. Everything at the same time. And we have to do it in 3 hours a week. Yes. Oh yes, easy. Also, we need a healthy socio-emotional environment. Everything at the same time. Thank you very much. So, how can we do that in 3 hours a week?
With a lot of luck.
Okay, yes, la bendición de nuestra mamacita.
Good luck.
Good luck. And some magic from Hogwarts. Okay, we can do that through intercultural communication. Finally, we have arrived to intercultural communication. What does it imply? Respect? I respect if a student is not talking or is not able to talk. Why? Because their social skills have been affected. For example, right now, normally, okay, we expect that with English teachers, everybody is like, yes, Gabriela, and I remember this, and I remember that, and when I was a student. But you are like, does that mean that you are not paying attention?
No.
No. It means that we have a different ways of communicating. Because normally we can say, yes, if you are teachers and if you are working towards that learning experience, you are going to be talking about that. You are not. And I respect that. Another one, tolerance. Yes?
I have a question about respect for people who don't want to speak, because speaking is such an important competency in English, right? I feel like I struggle with my students who don't want to speak, because if they're not speaking in class, then they're not speaking at all. So how do you respect your students who don't want to talk while also trying to get them to practice their speaking?
Okay, here we need to know our students. Because sometimes they don't want to talk because they are teenagers. Other times because they don't feel confident. Other because they are bullied at school. So we have to check why aren't they talking? The context, the situation, and particular students. Okay? I can say that here, you as an audience, you are not talking because you don't feel confident enough. This is the first time you see me.
Yeah.
And you don't feel confident enough. And after Berta's wonderful introduction, it's like, oh no, she is a doctor and she has lots of ideas. I don't want to be judged. In this context, now, but it depends on your own context. But if I can have a diagnosis in, let's say, 40 minutes, imagine what you can do in a week, maybe, or 2. Because if I can diagnose this group of people, I'm sure you can do the same with your students. So first of all, why? If they are bullied, okay, respect that. And there's a moment in which they have to speak. Do you remember what was that moment? Evaluations, yes! They have to speak. In that way, it's like, okay, those are the rules. I respect that you don't speak during the class, but you have to present a project by the end of the term. And you know that since the beginning. Clear rules. And also sometimes teenagers don't want to talk because it's cool. They want to be cool. And now you don't remember your teenage years, right? But you are like, English classes. I hate English. And maybe inside you were like, I love English, but I hate English. I'm the teacher. Yes, remember your teenage years. And you were like answering your workbook and writing poems in English and all the stuff. Yeah, now I can see your faces like, English. But first of all, diagnosis. What's happening? Why? After the diagnostic period, you can say, okay, they don't want to talk because of lack of vocabulary, because of, you decide. And in some schools, they had like that rule, last cycle, that they cannot talk to each other because of the masks. Remember? Yeah. So if they had that rule and they changed everything, it's like, why speak or not? Because of the viruses, or because of the bacteria, or because of the whatsoever. So it depends on it. But if I can have that idea with you here, only by looking at you, imagine you with your students. Yes, we can do lots of things in the classroom, just by knowing our students. Once we know about them, we can work in different ways. And it is very, it's a challenge. But I can say that it's also something that is helping us as a learning community to create a socio-affective, healthy environment. And it's very important right now. Well, knowledge. We were talking about that. The knowledge of the context, the situation, the students, the culture. For example, if we're in a group of girls from Zapotec origin, they are not going to talk in the classroom. That's a taboo for them. Why? Because it's a public place and they are not in a family. So they are not going to feel confident to talk. It depends on that. Also, different cultural expressions. Something that worked really cool in one of my classrooms was slam poetry. Have you ever heard about slam poetry? No. If not, Google it. It's very cool. Instead of having presentations like, okay, this and that and over there, they had presentations of their own slam poetry in English. And it worked really nice. Why? Because it's another cultural expression. It's not mainstream, but it's very important nowadays. Real and effective communication, two ways. It's not only, sorry, listen to me because I'm a teacher and I'm the almighty teacher. Yes, I am, but I'm listening. How can we do that? With active listening. And active listening is involving facial expressions, body language, gestures, and not only words. In fact, words are the only like 5% of communication in the classroom. We get more from other ways of communicating. Silence, it's also a very good way of getting information and be active in listening. Cope with silence is something very difficult for us teachers. We throw a question and everybody looking at us like this. And what is our reaction?
Saying something else to prompt a response.
Exactly. We cannot cope with silence. We have to say something. Did you notice that I brought a question and I waited? That's a way of coping with silence. Stop and wait. Also, intercultural communication implies the people. We are not talking about a culture without a face, without a name. We are talking about people. And the people having different discourse systems. Those systems are associated with genders, male, female, sexualities. Have you ever heard about the queer discourse?
Yes.
And I'm not talking about conspiracy theories. No, there's a discourse that is different. Also, generations. We have different generations here. We have different ways of talking. Okay? Workplace. It is not the same to work in a public school or in a private one. In a Catholic one. In a Hebrew one. Oh my God, those are the toughest for me. And you're like, does it exist? Yes. And professions. Teachers, we have our jargon. No? And we have our jokes without jargon that nobody else understands. Right? So, according to Scotland, and Jones, those are the parts of intercultural communication. So, do you remember that? Forever and ever? Of course not. Something important. Intercultural communication is people. And it depends on people, context, and situation.